Okay, thank you for all joining us and supporting the OCA days. This is our last presentation for the OCA 2021, and I'm pleased to introduce Lisa Murry and Daryl Davis, who will be talking you today about getting a grasp on your costing using activity-based costing. Let me give you the brief introduction for the presenter. Mr. Daryl Davis is a director of business development at Open Source Integrator. He is an innovative IT leader with 25 years experience, and he has success in implementing visual and advanced technology to solve even the most complex business problems. So I'm glad to work with him.
Glad to
Uh,
work with you too, Bhavesh.
Thank you. For Lisa is a project manager and consultant for open source integrator. She has been in IT industry over the 20 years, which is a very really big numbers, and has focused on the different ERP and the process workflow. So I'm very excited. Over to you guys.
Thanks. Thanks, Bhavesh.
I agree. Very big numbers.
Yep.
Excellent. Are we ready to get started?
We are.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for coming to us and joining us for OCA Days Online 2021. We're very excited to be here. We wanted to talk to you today about some of our customer issues that we have run into, some of the problems that we've seen, and some of the wonderful solutions that we have implemented as a result of those customer needs. So as I always like to start, I'd like to start with a general problem statement. So as we've been working with our customers, one of the things that they come to us time and again, varying companies, retail companies, manufacturing companies, companies that do all different types of industries. At some point or another, those companies grow to a scale or start a growth path that requires them to get a better tracking of their total costs throughout their entire value streams and or production processes. And these costs are critical to them because while companies are normally smaller and are able to understand their overall costs, once they start to grow, those costs become very hard to see. They get hidden and there's not a lot of visibility to them. So when we talk about that problem statement and needing to get to solve it, we like to talk about needs. What does the customer need? What do these businesses need? Well, the first thing that they need, again, we said things get hidden. So the first thing they need is visibility into their costs. Now, for the majority of our customers, the visibility that they need is they need to better understand their overhead. They need to better understand the costs of their material. They need to better understand the cost of their labor. And truthfully, depending on the type of company, there are maybe other costs involved as well, like machine costs or different types of overheads that they want to split down differently. But the general idea is the same. They require visibility into those costs. Why? Because they need to make better business decisions. Better business decisions is what's going to drive those companies to be better and to improve and adjust. And so the first thing that those better business decisions do is allow them opportunity for improvement. As they start making those decisions, they can start seeing those opportunities and going after them. Some of those improvements could be directed towards specifically reducing costs. Once you get a better grasp of those costs, their needs might be to reduce them. But ultimately, most companies are also trying to price responsibly. As markets change, as customers' needs change, as competitors change, they need to understand and know how to price appropriately for where they're at in their business. Price to their market, price based on the cost of their product. You know, ultimately, companies want to make money and we want to help them get there. But through this whole thing, the final need is that we need to be able to accurately and responsibly account for all of these costs and items through their value streams and production processes. So we need to make sure that whatever solution we provide will allow them to responsibly account for all this as well. So what's one solution? Well, one option to solving this problem is a concept called activity-based costing. And that's what this presentation is going to focus on. What is activity-based costing? How can it help solve and create that visibility that we're looking for? And then how can Odoo help our customers achieve that goal?
So what is activity-based costing? Well, it is the method that identifies the activities in an organization and assigns cost to each of these activities to all of the products and services according to the actual consumption by each. So what does that mean? Well, we want to think about things like light, heat. Those things are things that are used but not necessarily calculated in the planned cost up front. Machines, robots. We want to think about people, labor, the things that go into the making of the product or doing the service. Those are actual things that happen that contribute to the end product or service that we're giving our customers. So activity-based costing allows us to identify each of those activities and be able to see not only what we plan to do, but what did we actually do.
So why is this valuable? Well, ultimately, whenever we make our business decisions, it comes down to the value. Almost every company is it knows that it's worth investing in certain things to make themselves better, as long as there's a good amount of value that comes along with that. And so what is the value for the activity-based costing solution? Well, ultimately, it comes down to two things. One, activity-based costing can be used to, one, get a better grasp on your costs all the way through. And you can get a better grasp on costs that make sense to your business. Some companies need to be more granular with their costs. Other companies can keep it at a higher level. But again, you want to grasp that. You want to get control of those costs and understand them. And then ultimately, what that's going to drive you to do is to form a more appropriate pricing strategy. Again, what is necessary for your business? What is necessary for the market? What is necessary based on your competition in that market? You're able to choose what strategy do you want to go for, and now you can measure your winning and losing much better because you know what your costs are, you know how to price appropriately, and now you can measure and improve. So what does that look like? What does making better, faster decisions look like? Well, let's talk about a couple examples. One, it could help you identify and eliminate those products and services that are unprofitable. The ones that you're not making money on. You could get rid of them. You could realize that they're not necessary. Or you could work to lower the prices of those items that are potentially overpriced in market. Maybe you could be selling much more and lower the prices of them and still make money. But it's hard to know that without knowing your cost and knowing what's going into that. So really it becomes a product or service portfolio aim. It gives you the opportunity to identify and eliminate products or lower prices on products and still make money. The other thing it could do is it could help you identify and eliminate production or products or services that have processes that are ineffective or too costly. So it allows you to identify those products and maybe go after that same product, but get a better cost per product. So now maybe your pricing is right in the market, but you need to know where you can lower your costs to make more money. A good way of looking at this is that this strategy in ABC costing can allow you to potentially go after and re-engineer your products to make more money.
So how does Odoo 14 help us? They did a few things in Odoo 14 that does allow us to get closer to that activity-based costing that we desire. So the first thing is that they did is they put in work centers. When they did that, they did it at a single cost per hour with no breakdown. So again, it's a step towards the right direction. It's a good thing. It doesn't get us all the way to that desired activity-based costing. They also put in basic WIP configuration. It moves material in and out of GL counts based on the work center. It shows you what's left inside of WIP, but then you need to manually go clear it and manually decide how much of it was overhead, how much of it was labor, or how much of it was a different activity that you need to then clear to another place. It gives you the cost structure, and it's visible only on the manufacturing order and the bill of material breakdown. So you can't see it anywhere else in the value stream. So you have to be always going back to there. So again, it gets us a step closer. Those are all really good things that Odoo 14 has. But as we're going to see, we can take that work in progress and take it to the next level with activity-based costing.
So we see that Odoo 14 got us there, got us closer, got us thinking about it in terms of the right ideas, but we identified there's some gaps. So what we did was we identified we can have some OCA modules that can help us fill the gaps. And what does that look like? Well, the OCA modules gaps, that the gaps in Odoo that we wanted to use OCA modules to fill really came from a two-prong approach. One, we wanted to be able to get a better idea of costs through a job. So a lot of customers are job oriented. They want to know, am I making money on these particular sales orders for these particular jobs, especially the companies and the organizations that are make to order for a lot of their customers. Understanding and knowing their costs, the further upstream, the better they're going to do, not only pricing the product, but making money off of those projects. So we started and looked at working with the account analytic model inside of Odoo. And we also knew that this was a critical component through the manufacturing process. So we're working with the manufacturing model as well. And so what we were trying to do with these modules is create a two-prong approach. One, we need to be able to split our costs up throughout those processes so that we can see better where our costs are going for our overhead, our labor, our machines, etc. But the other thing we need to do is account for it. So now we need to make sure that we're getting appropriate responsible WIP and that we're able to properly track the variances when we either do better or worse from a material or activity perspective. And so the OCA modules need to properly account for those so that our customers aren't having to spend a lot of time doing manual transactions and guessing about how much of it was labor, how much of it was overhead.
So what are the benefits? Well, let's go over some of them. So the OCA modules that we just showed you goes ahead and gives us the ability to do some reasonable estimates based on activities, because now that we have been able to identify the activities up front, and we'll show you how in a minute, we're also able to then look back and estimate our product based on what we know actually happened versus what we planned to happen. It also gives us that subledger breakdown that we're looking for and allows us to go ahead and automatically post those general ledger entries for responsible accounting. And that's critical because that way we are not manually trying to go and guess. We know what happened based on the activity that took place, and we're seeing that flow right to our GL for us. Also, it's flexible to your business. You can make this as complex or as simple as you need it to be. So maybe for your business, you just want one account, clearing account, or one variance account, and you want to go ahead and do some more manual stuff or do some analysis on your own. You can utilize it like that with one activity. And maybe for your business, you have 3 activities that you want to hone in on and really look at. It's flexible to go to that depth of complexity as well. So these are some ways that Odoo's out of the box, that we filled the gap for some of Odoo's out of the box issues for managing WIP and variance. So let's go a little bit deeper into these features that we have been talking about. So the first thing that it does is it carries in the analytical account. Currently, we know we can put the analytical account on the sales order This allows us to not only see it on the sales order, but it follows that sales order to the manufacturing order, and then again through to the child manufacturing orders. So this is going to allow us to do that level of reporting that we're really looking to get. Also, the work center setup, it generates some cost types. So in addition to that single hour, now we can go ahead and assign a cost type to our work center, allowing us to do multiple activities on that. It also looks at manufacturing consumption when it generates those analytical items. It looks at what's planned versus what we actually did and how we consume the product. And it kind of lays that all out for us. We're going to see that in a little bit. Gives us real-time reporting. So we don't have to wait into the close of the MO to be able to see all of the stuff we're talking about. You can go ahead and you can post that either on a scheduler or manually at any time and see at this point in time, this is really what my WIP looks like. These are what my applieds look like. Here's what I'm looking at for variances. And then when you go ahead and clear that manufacturing order, it goes ahead and clears those WIP balances and posts those variances for you. So your GL is up to date and accurate.
So let's just take a look at this really briefly into how does this look in Odoo 14. So we'll start off very high level and kind of discuss some of the things that we talked about through this presentation. And the first thing that we talked about was this idea of cost drivers. So again, in a work center, we originally had that single cost per hour that you could set on a work center. And depending on your type of business, that cost per hour could be generated from multiple items. It could be labor resources, it could be machine resources, it could be overhead resources. But instead of focusing on a single cost per hour, we enhanced the work center to be allowed to add a cost driver. Now, this cost driver is unique in that it allows us to associate many activities with one work center and be able to gain that breakdown. This is what that looks like. So if we had a work center and we decided to create a cost driver for that particular work center, and we wanted to be able to say as a business, what are the costs that are going to be associated with this particular work center? This is our opportunity to do it. So that cost driver product is able to be turned on in Odoo, and it enables an activity costs tab. That cost tab will then allow you to add all of the activities necessary to drive the costs to that particular work center. In this example that we see here, what we decided was this work center would be broken down into two types of activities. The first type of activity would be overhead at a quantity of $20 per hour. So for every hour I spend in this work center, it's going to charge $20 of overhead. Same thing here. I wanted to track labor and identify labor on this work center. So what this is saying is that it will track labor at a cost of $40 for every hour that I post on this work center.
And once we post those hours over, we can actually see the analytical items. So this is a screen in which we're going to review how do we capture those actual costs. So it's another feature that plugs into manufacturing, consumption, and operations, and it generates these analytical items storing the corresponding costs. So you can see that we have an analytical tag here that allows us to kind of deep dive in and see the components, the labor, the overhead, and what really happens on each of those different cost centers or different work centers that we are looking at. So it supports us in being able to split those cost drivers into their map costs at the analytical account level, allowing us for full cost analysis in a single place. We're also able to evaluate WIP and variance throughout that whole manufacturing process. So we talked about earlier how you could post it at any time and see what was going on. This screen allows you to kind of see what is happening before you post. And at any time you can go look and say, hey, what's going on with my manufacturing order, what's going on in this analytical account, and how much did I plan? What did I plan to do? Did I do that? What actually did I do? What's still in WIP, and where am I off? And so it allows us to see those WIPs and variances and how they're being calculated. And then this data is used to create the journal entries representing this information in the accounting books. So it will match for you.
So as we did this project and identified these, like I said, we started off with a customer problem statement. And what we realized is that we had a number of customers who had, similar problems that kind of came down to the same root issue. And so the lessons that we learned through this project was that there was a lot of different ways that this was being handled, either manually or through some custom code or through some automated actions. It was all being handled kind of all over the place. But what we learned about this is that customers really need to be able to manage costs the way that is important to them. So there's a lot of different ways to solve problems, but a lot of the times those solutions do not actually get to what is important to the customer. It can get them close, it can get them by, but it wasn't really getting them to what was important to them. So we realized we needed to create a module, and that module needed to be able to be flexible. So for the customers that wanted to be very simple, it could be simple, and it needed to be simple. For customers who needed to be more comprehensive, who needed to get a little bit deeper dive, who had a little bit more complexity involved and needed a little bit more visibility, they needed to be there too. But since some customers don't want complexity and others require it, the module needed to support that variability. Also, we learned through this process that when products go into WIP across companies is very subjective. Holistically, they all kind of have the same intent and the same idea. But the way that those production processes work, the way that the companies ran their business, the way that they accounted for it, it always had an element of subjectivity. And so when they were getting things into their general ledger was critical. And so the module needed to support that variability as well. I want to invite you to a Odoo Experience 2021 presentation that was done as well about this module and how it was used to solve a customer problem. It was presented by Daniel Reese this year, and it's called Odoo Tools for Tracking Manufacturing, an Engineering to Order Case Study. And I invite you to go out. It's an excellent customer testimonial for how they needed to solve problems, and this module was used to help them do it.
So we want to thank you for joining us to talk about activity-based costing, and we're open to any questions or answers you have. Our emails are on the screen, so feel free to reach out to us independently as well.
Thank you so much, Daryl and Lisa, for bring us this very complex, I can say, the procedure and everything. It's very useful for the cost tracking, and you represent very well and display how the calculation between WIP and the variance, and very useful for the analytic account management and extend it for the cost management. It's very great and very complex, the process, and thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you, Bhavesh.
Thanks, Bhavesh.
Thank you. Please feel free to raise your question if you have any, and contact Lisha and Daryl for any kind of business process if you have, or any complex in your Odoo operations.
Absolutely. We're happy to answer any questions, regarding this topic or any others that companies are struggling with or dealing with or having a hard time gaining visibility in with Odoo. I think one of our major points that we're trying to bring to everybody, the community, our customers, how do we get that beautiful, wonderful information that's inside of the box. How do we get that out and get it visible for those customers to make good, fast business decisions? Anything that you can get in front of them to better understand where they need to go, the more agile your company can be when it needs to grow or change or adapt. And so this is one of those items that we've seen companies struggle with for a while.
That's great. And thank you so much for the sharing these beautiful modules on the OCA and make it public available. So this is very grateful.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. I think we don't have any questions, so we can wrap up our talk. And for the track 2.
Awesome. Thank you for having us. It was wonderful being here.
Thank you so much.